break every chain. There is power in the name of Jesus. Call on this morning. There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. Break every chain, 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 break every chain.
I had to start it over. It wasn't the right way. It went this way. So I just started it over.
You break every chain, break every chain, you break every chain. Break every chain, you break every chain, break every chain. So these songs that we've chosen for the rest of the day are songs that we've been doing for the last 2 months, online, whatever, in our living room. And so it's just a joy to be here and playing with the rest of our band. And this one has grabbed us right from the start. So looking forward to it. God, I'm on my knees again. God, I beg and please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down this desert road, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. 'Cause your forgiveness. Dead man walking, slave to sin. I wanna know about being born again. I need you. Oh God, I need you. So take me to the riverside. Take me under baptized. I need you. Oh God, I need you. Your forgiveness. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want to change. I don't want to abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me want to change. I don't want to abuse your grace. God, I need it
fix it for you. I fix it. No, no, no. Yeah, keep your dress on. I fix it for you. There you go, man.
We need your forgiveness, Lord. Need your forgiveness, Lord. Singing, oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, send us with power into the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with fire and love for the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, send us with power into the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with fire and love for the world. We are gathered in your name with expectancy and faith. We are waiting. We are waiting. Give us boldness to proclaim all the wonders of your grace. We are waiting. We are waiting. Singing, oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, send us with power into the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with fire and love for the world. Your compassion for the lost, love that sent you to the cross. We receive it. We receive it. Jesus, you are worth it all. No matter what the cost, we believe it. Oh, we believe it. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, send us with power into the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with fire, love for the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with power into the world. Oh, Holy Spirit, move in our hearts, fill us with fire, love for the world. Here's our prayer in this song. So let this room be shaken, and let our hearts be broken, and let your church awaken to your love, and let this room be shaken, and let our hearts be broken, and let your church awaken to your love, and let this room be shaken, and let our hearts be broken. say, this is your prayer every day, right? For your whole lives. What a great song. Amen. 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 Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I am free, amen. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I am free, amen. I love you, Lord. For your mercy never failed me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. Every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound to save the wretch like me. I once was lost, but now was blind, but now I see. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
He's Bobby. Come and talk to me. God is good. How many like report card days? Lots of hands. But what if you knew you were getting a good report card? Would you be happy to get it? God has done great things through us. When I say us, I don't mean us two. I mean us, corporately, through Withrow Church supporting George and Madeline. He has done great things. How many love miracles? In a few moments, you're going to see miracles on the screen. Okay? God is at work. If you don't think God is at work and you walk out these doors after this service, you are deaf. And we'll pray for healing for you. How many believe that nothing is impossible with God? No. How many believe that nothing is impossible with God? Amen. You're going to see the nothing right here. Okay? I'm going to ask Madeline to come up. She's going to take you through the slides, and then after that presentation, I will come up and explain some of what you saw. Okay, Madeline, please.
You might have to reposition yourself. I don't know if you can all see the screen.
You know, we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. And I'm here to tell you that behind every godly man is a more godly woman, spurring him on to success. Now, you want to see the scars? I was hoping you
Well, it's great to be here. We're just honored to be here. I said to different ones coming in, I just head up the road and think, oh, it's like going home. This is great. I know it's not the same, but it's great. Thanks to God. And God is not sitting in heaven going, what am I going to do with this mess? He's okay with it. He's in charge. He's in control. He is not worried. Amen. So we're not either. Amen. Amen. The time in Africa this year was fast, emotional, and really, really good, even though it was slow. And one thing that we did see on the way up was some wildlife, that these giraffes were on the side of the road. Yes, that is a snake. We didn't see the head and we didn't see the end of the tail, but that is a snake. Just for clarification, I really have not met a snake that I liked. On our way into our camp, our site that they have given to South Sudan Christian Outreach Ministries in the refugee camp, when we got there that day, we were surrounded by our 576 school children that are in the school that we have put up. And Tessa said, these people really love you. We could not contain our tears when they greeted us coming in to the site on the first morning, or by noon by the time we were there. Charles is here. He's one of our teachers. Okay, and Tessa's our granddaughter, Joanna David Larsgaard's youngest. She was with us this year, and she was outstanding. We would take her again in a heartbeat. And she always had an entourage of children around her. Here she decided to paint fingernails. And she always had kids with her. Wherever she went, there was this, she called them her little tribe or her little troop that followed her wherever she went. Our schoolyard, this is the primary school that we have. You've seen some of these pictures, not these exact pictures, but some of this before, those that have been here before. That is our schoolyard still. Unfortunately, we're all still in the refugee camp. The borehole, the water well is still functioning very well. What an outstanding blessing that is, to have clean water right on site. Yeah, that is chapel for the upper levels of our primary school, and they're in shoulder to shoulder. Yes, they are. And the overflow is outside at the back, and then on the other side, on this side out the window, there's kids that couldn't get in. Yeah, we're full. So when we arrived, George got his workshop. This is the workshop up and running, and they are considering what to do first. And George always brings tools, and so they've been battery tools lately that are going, and the guys are just getting used to them, figuring out how to run them. They're so exciting. It's an awesome experience for our staff, our young men, to learn how to use these power tools, because they're just using still a machete and an axe out in the field or wherever else they go. And if you hire a contractor, he doesn't even come with a tape measure. So this is an outstanding experience, and our guys, they've been with us, Joseph and Dante and the other men, they've been Zoom, George calls them Zoom, with us now for a long time, and it's really good men. They're building benches there for the nursery that are still on the ground. We went right off the bat and saw some of our pastors that we support that are out of bitty camp. So Pastor Peter is in a Rewa camp, a Rewa Worship Center, Pentecostal church, and he also is an outstanding young man. You're going to hear me say that a lot, because the men that God has given to us are good men. Just good men. When we first found Peter in the camp, well, we knew him before, of course, but when we found him in a Rewa camp, he was under a tarp, just up on 4 trees, and we said, well, we should get you a roof, Peter. He said, well, let's see if we can put an iron sheet roof on. We did that first.
Remember, when we say we mean you.
Yeah, we thought, okay, we have the funds for. So eventually, over these 4 years now, Peter has got his roof, and then he put bamboo walls up, and then he got them all mudded and put on doors, and there he's got a little church. He's doing very, very well. Then we went to see Pastor Philip, and he's in the bush. He's up towards the border with South Sudan and living there with his family, and he has a church of, I think he said he's got now about 100 born-agains. He actually had me take a photo of the list of his born-agains. And then there are others besides, but the born-agains, these are the ones, Mama. So he's up there. We were able to really minister to him this year because he told us that he'd lost one of his older sons in a car accident this year, and we were able to minister to him. He was still recovering from that. Tessa this is at Pastor Philip's place, and she was showing Samson and another little guy something on her cell phone. She was a big attraction wherever she went. And praying for Pastor Philip and his wife, Angelina Dawa. Just trying to ask him. We didn't realize that was going to be the only time we would see them. We had planned to return, but that got canceled. So we were glad we got there the once anyway. And then Winnie. Now some of you remember when we showed you the pictures of Winnie last year. She's got a little shop. She's in Yumbe town. It's a completely Muslim town, well, almost completely Muslim town. And she's a Muslim, born-again background evangelist, and she is on fire. So we had support for her this year from someone. Someone said that he would support her, and we brought it to her this one particular day. George has a little bit more to say about her when he gives his message and updates. But it was an outstanding, always, time to visit with her. She is so on fire, and she is fearless in the face of militant Muslims in her town. We sat Tessa down and asked her, would you tell Tessa your story or some of your testimony? And Tessa was very, very moved by this. She's just a young woman. I don't think she's quite 30. Impressed with this fearless young woman. And that is the extent of her shop. I think some of you might recognize it from last year. She had been completely robbed of everything in the shop, and she just started again. She just keeps going. It's amazing. These are ladies right in our refugee camp base. They're special to me, so I made sure they got pieces of fabric. Tessa and I did a lot of shopping for the ladies. And there's Tessa, one of the sewing machines. We have 4 treadles, and then I have a little Janome that runs on solar power that George has set up for me. Tessa was a big help. She looks like a little Dutch girl here. But she's sewing. This is a uniform, so she was sewing up something. Repairing, we did lots of repairs. And as you sometimes remember, or might remember, that I buy pieces of material. I bring over embroidery floss from home, and the ladies do tablecloths and things like that to sell. So here I'm distributing. I think I got them all new hoops, embroidery hoops this year. They were dividing up what colors they wanted. Right outside my sewing room door is where Moses does a lot of wound care, dispenses medicines. He's one of our teachers, but we call him Nurse or Dr. Moses, which he likes, and does a lot of wound care there. You see this machete over here? This is Mama Rose. The child had cut their foot and taken a big slab of meat off the bottom. And Rose was there ready to cut it off if necessary. So this is rustic. Anyway, so there you go. Yeah, we did find Juma. You'll remember Juma that we've helped with a wheelchair tricycle about 3 years ago. He's a polio victim. He's not quite 30 as well. And George has a little update on Juma this year. He's not in the refugee camp. He's in Kaboko town, and God just gave him to us. Timothy is on the board of directors. I think he is the chairman of the board of South Sudan Christian Outreach.
Evangelist, he's our
And he's an evangelist. He's one of our primary teachers. He's a fine young man, about as skinny as they come. And that is one of our last days. We're getting ready to go. Dante is our driver. He takes care of us. We go wherever he goes. And I was going to say he goes where we go. It's not that way. We go wherever he goes. And he's a good young man that he has handled, not just in shillings. Shillings are very deflated, so that would be in millions. But he's handled thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars with us and keeps a record to the penny for us, so we have no problem. When we send money now to Uganda through Western Union, he takes care of it all for us. And on our hasty retreat out of the country, we took a shortcut and we took a barge over the Nile. It's like a 4-passenger barge, and the first time I ever took that thing, I thought, do not sink here. Please do not sink here, because there's hippos in the water everywhere, not to mention the crocodiles. No, alligator. And crocodiles. Never smile at a crocodile in the Nile. That's the same. So since we left, blind widow Rebecca, she lives just up the road from our base in South Sudan, our South Sudan Christian Outreach base in the refugee camp. We always help her. We bring her cabbages and tomatoes and supplement whatever rations, salt, tea, anything that the UN gives her. But we found out that she and her family had not eaten for 3 days because the rations have been cut, because UN donations are down, so the rations are all cut. So Timothy took our emergency money that we left when we left hastily, and bought food and packaged it up in bundles, took our wheelbarrow. I said, George, there goes our wheelbarrow. That's why we buy new ones every year. And now I won't be so begrudging when they say, we need a wheelbarrow, Mama. Why? And he distributed food to the elderly, the crippled, the handicapped, and the orphans. There are a lot of orphan head of homes, like Mom and Dad are passed away or gone or something's happened, and there's like a 12 or 13-year-old in charge of all the little ones in the home, or he could even be 10 years old. So Timothy has gone, this is Timothy again, has gone to the child head of homes, to the elderly, these two ladies would be the elderly in this home, or the handicapped, and brought them food supplies. He said the situation is dire, and I know we can only help a few. That's all we can do just around our base there. But the ones we can help, it makes a difference. So that's what we've been doing lately, is seeing what we could do to help these people, and thank you for helping. We're just very grateful of the help that comes from here. We can't do it without help. I just don't have it. I don't have the means, and we always tell them that. This is not mine. This is from Canada. This is from people that love you and that just want to partner and do their best. Thank you.
Yeah, because we're the same family. We explain to our friends wherever we give anything away that we are only a bridge. This is not coming from us. This is coming from people in Canada and Alberta, mainly, that love you, that hear about you and want to help you. And so they say, well, we actually got an email just recently, the last week. Please tell the people that help you thank you. That was from Timothy. So, here we are. Report card time. You ready? Okay. 14 years now we have been working in South Sudan. Due to the current year, I'm saying this on behalf of those who may be listening that don't understand. We're in the refugee camp because of a civil war in South Sudan, now in the 4th year of working and living in the refugee camp. We have been given property by the United Nations to set up a school, a ministry base, the church, and so we have succeeded in doing that. We now have a church that has an average every Sunday of over 200. These are refugee people from South Sudan that many have never ever heard Christ. They don't know Revelation from, what's the first book? Genesis. No, I'm checking you. From Genesis. But they're learning, and the church is growing. Last year when we were there, the situation hasn't changed much, except that suicide has flooded in like a tidal wave. Young men, young and old, have lost all hope, and they have given up. The atmosphere in the camps continues to be discouraging and depressing, and I want you to understand it's so bad you can read it on their faces. It's that visible, it has affected them. Unknowingly, last year when we were there, the United Nations handed out poisoned food, which resulted in many deaths. That caused the refugees to fear the food that was coming in by the UN. It's not the UN's fault the food was spoiled. It was food they bought from a particular country that wasn't stored properly, wasn't dried properly. You farmers will know what I'm talking about, and then develops in mold. Well, that mold killed the young and the old. If that was not difficult and bad enough as it was, the UN had reduced donations in this past year, which caused them to reduce the food rations that were supposed to last 1 month by 30%. And this is the second reduction in the year. So the food rations are not lasting a month, and that is why people are now getting hungry even as they approach halfway through it, through the food distribution. Permit me here to interject. The UN are doing a great job. Don't be hard on the UN. It's an impossible task to try and feed, look after, and protect all these millions of people around the world that are running from the civil wars in various countries. So keep praying for them, for the UN. The fear of the COVID virus is real in the camps. The UN and the doctors that come are informing them if it ever comes, this is what you have to do. And I will tell you this, the health of every single refugee is compromised. We are not talking that the UN is giving out well-balanced diets. It's barely keeping them alive. If the virus, COVID virus, ever gets rooted in the camps, the death toll will go into millions. It is serious. So I'm talking around the world now. It's serious that it stays out of the camps. The clothing that the refugees arrived wearing or carrying 4 years ago is now just rotten rags. They have nothing. During our time there this year, there was an underlying theme that kept coming up with us. God kept bringing up over and over and over again. In our devotions, in our activity during the day, in our discussions at night, just over and over. And that theme is found in 2 verses. The first part is Proverbs chapter 3. I'm reading from the NIV, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You know how hard that is? No, it's serious. You start thinking of, can't think about that. You can't do it. In all your ways, submit to him, and he, God, will make straight your paths. And the second part is Matthew 17 and verse 20. He replied, because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible with you or for you. Now, do you believe that? No. Do you really believe that? All things are possible for you. Thank you. And it's scripture. So you have a problem, you take it up with God. So God kept showing us over and over. You're going to see it demonstrated here in a few moments in what I'm about to share. That he is, you come to a mountain, you don't know how to get through it, you can't go over it. What am I going to do? We have to seek God to find the way through. He's the way maker. You would think that after 13 years of working in Africa, 20 plus working in Cuba, we might have learned a few things about ministry, right? In mission field. And we have. But this trip was to stretch us in far new ways. Our mission, our calling never changed. But we had to truly learn to trust God. Every single step. You don't understand that? We didn't understand it even when it was happening until it was all over. And Madeline would say, did you see what God just did? And I said, no, I was too busy praying. And it happened. It all started here at Calgary. When we were checking in, KLM check-in counter. The attendant said to us, there's a storm in Europe, and you can no longer fly to Holland. Normally we fly to Holland straight to Entebbe. It's really easy, just a short flight. But this time he said, you're going to have to go over to the Air Canada counter and check in with them. They've got a route for you. Okay, so we go to Air Canada. You're going to fly to Germany, not Holland, and you're going to fly to Turkey, and then you're going to fly to Entebbe. Okay, simple enough. Make a long story short, we're waiting for our delayed Germany flight. We ended up being rerouted for the 3rd time. Hearing these words is not comforting. We are sorry, Mr. Harrison, you missed your flight to Turkey. You are now booked on a flight to Ethiopia. And once you're in Ethiopia, you're going to be rerouted to Entebbe, Uganda. Those words are not comforting when you're just excited to get going. So let's get it straight now. From Calgary, we're going to Germany. Germany, we're going to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, we're going to Entebbe, Uganda. Our bags went to Turkey. We never did go to Turkey. Some of our bags followed us. Eventually, we arrived in Uganda. Our faithful driver that you saw in the picture and ministry board member Dante was waiting there for us. We hugged, cried, we had a wonderful reunion. God had made us. Whenever I say us, I'm talking about us. Able to minister once again in Africa. As Dante drove, we have a 10-hour drive where we're headed. So he's driving and he's filling us in on all that has happened in this past year. Eventually we end up at our destination, a motel where we're staying. It will be home for us. So we thought for the next 3 months. Didn't end up that way. Dante explained to us that food, medicine, and clothing were still the greatest needs in the camp. So the following morning, what did you do, Madeline?
Loaded up.
You were loaded up. So here's what she did. With your money. We love spending other people's money. It's really fun, let me tell you. Okay? She went out and bought cases of Bibles. Cases, not just 1 or 2 bottles, cases. We buy them by the box, and we buy them in different languages. She bought 50 kg bags. You can't lift 50 kgs. Takes 2 men at least. Of beans, rice, onion, sugar, and posho. Then she bought 100 kg bag. That's 4 men lifting of flour, smaller bags of salt, and then she's not finished. She goes over to the pharmacy. Said, "We got to stop here, Dante." "Okay, well, what are you getting?" "I'm getting treatment for malaria, skin infections, and other medicine that I know is going to be needed when we get home." Then what did I do? I stuffed Madeline and Tessa in the back on top of the dog. And then she says she's still not finished. Pull over to the market, and she goes out and buy a bunch of cabbages and tomatoes and stuffs that in corners. We were loaded to the top. 1.5 hour drive away is the camp, if the road is good. As we neared the mission compound, this is what happened. We noticed many people were lining themselves up along the road. And they were clapping and dancing. They were smiling, waving their hands at our car. Why are they doing that? When we turned the corner onto our mission-based compound, we were met with 576 children and 20-plus teachers. They're blocking the road. We can't get through. They're singing and dancing and clapping, and they're singing their welcome song. We're home. We're home. After all of this trouble with airports, we have finally come home. Dante explains that this welcoming is for us. So you should get out of the Land Cruiser and walk into the compound with them. So we began walking in. We saw various friends along the journey through the faces, and we went over and hugged them and cried. And we stopped at the meeting tree that you saw pictures of. They had a short program to welcome us home. I want to confess, I feel more at home in Africa than here in Alberta. I do. Now when I'm there, I do crave home, but when I'm home, I really crave Africa. And at the meeting tree, that's when Tessa turned to us and said, "These people really love you." And we all wept. From there, we started to work. Madeline went out and bought some meat for lunch. And during lunch that day, we were told by those sharing with us, they hadn't had meat in their diet since we were there last year. How many have gone without, like 10 months without meat? Okay, you pagans. So after we had lunch, the leaders had organized another meeting with us where they began giving reports to us of the various programs that we had set up and asked them to do in our absence. So we have evangelism going on, we have food distribution going on, we have distribution of Bibles and glasses to the blind and those that can't see very well. We have all these different categories: emergency, medical, emergency, health, all these categories. So they're coming and giving reports now how this went. Now, I'm going to divert here and tell you a side story. A few years ago, I'm working in South Sudan at this point, and I'm feeling overwhelmed by reaching all of these villages with Jesus and planting churches. Some of us, our church plants were successful, some not. And finally one day I threw my hands up at God and I said, "I need help. Send me help." The Civil War came. But there's a silver lining in this Civil War. The villages that were scattered down the road every 15 minutes where we're living are now in a refugee camp, or one of the 14 refugee camps that UN set up. So I can reach them now very easy. So I have organized our evangelists to go and do what he calls crusade meetings. No, he calls them outreaches. Yes, outreach. Where he shows the Jesus video in their language and explains the salvation message. So my goal, while we're in the refugee camps, is to reach all 14. as I speak, standing here right now, we've done 6, 7, 8, counting the rewind 9. We've done 9 of the 14. We've got churches in 9 of the 14. We're working at this, okay? So, I remember I'm saying us. So Timothy is now coming with his report. This is what he reported. He said, the 6 outreaches that you had planned when you left are now finished, and everyone's a success. There are now, I got to get the number right, I forget how many, hundreds born again in total from all the 6. God is at work. Each crusade is followed up by a church planting, somewhat small, some are bigger, it just depends. And Timothy and Pastor James continue to give oversight. Some of those churches today are struggling, some are doing quite well. When the reports were all finished, the distribution of food to the elderly, we couldn't handle it. The staff did it. The staff did what we were asking. They took the funds and they allocated and they budgeted and they carried out. And the ministry continued in our absence. After 13 years of training our staff, we are now being paid off in huge spiritual dividends. Now, in the story, it's time for Madeline and I to get to work. So we rolled up our sleeves. Madeline and Tessa went to the sewing room, opened it up, organized the sewing school, got that going. I dug out the solar system, the table saws. The guys love the table saws. That's the only table saw in tight. Like you can travel 500 miles and not find a table saw. That's why they love working for me. We went out and bought lumber. Now buying lumber, oh my goodness, that's an entire story in itself, which I don't have time for. And then we began making school desks for the increased enrollment over this past year. What happened was that the school system of Uganda came to our staff and said, there are so many kids not going to school in the refugee camp, you have to increase. We have a number that we kick off each class at. When it reaches that number, do you remember? I don't remember what
35,
it is. 35 or
and
so.
they wanted 50.
And the government wanted us to do 50, and our staff contacted us back here, what should we do? I said, go for 50. Go for it. So our enrollment increased greatly. So now we have kids sitting on logs. Logs, just logs.
And on tarps.
And on the floor with a tarp, the dirt floor. So now we're busy making all of that. Over the following weeks, we started going out and visiting and encouraging our pastors. You heard about Pastor Philip. You heard about Pastor Peter in Ariwa. Another refugee camp. Peter's in another camp. He's not with us. And you heard about Winnie. I want to talk a little bit about Winnie. She has my heart. I love her. Well, not kind of love. Some of you might be thinking, but I love her as my sister. You may remember her testimony from several years back. The young Muslim woman, girl, now turned evangelist pastor. This is one of our miracles coming up, guys. Get ready. It's coming. This is payback. She led in the past year 1,500, more than Muslims to Christ.
Wow.
She's just a little tiny girl, 100 pounds. And she's divided them into 28 groups. We would say something like our cell groups. And she teaches them every week. She informed Madeline and I that Muslims are coming to her like this daily. Tell me the truth. Oh, I'm coming off the camera. Sorry.
I got you.
Thank you for pulling Winnie up. It's okay. She's going to follow me. Okay? Tell me the truth about Jesus. Quiet. She's quiet. Tell me the truth about Jesus.
Can't tell you. It's too dangerous.
For who?
For me and you.
Too dangerous for me to tell me the truth? And then what will you say to me? This is what Winnie did.
Go away, she says. Go away, I can't tell you.
Can you imagine? Her whole heart is to lead people to Christ. And she tells them to go away because it's too dangerous. And you know what they say? We insist you tell us the truth about Jesus. We insist that you tell us the truth. And she leads them to Christ. All she's doing is testing sincerity. It's all she's doing is are these guys serious or not serious? And so when I handed her the money this year, which is a lot of money in their money, it's like 1.4 million in their money. It's a lot. Her salary is a lot. She wept. And her sister beside her wept. There's actually 3 girls that do all the teaching in her churches. All 3 of them are there, and all 3 of them are weeping. And then Winnie says this to us. This is her miracle, but this is your miracle. This is your miracle. She says, we have been praying for a safe place to baptize Muslims. A place where we can do it in secret. She has bought it now. We know where it is. We would say it's in an undisclosed area beside a river nearby. Remember last year about the riot? Do you remember the story about Winnie's riot? For the second time in 2 years, another riot came after her. And for the second time in 2 years, God made a way to move her mountain and bring her to safety. So let me try and picture this. Someone from the east comes with some money, and he gives it to you. And you are living at this moment from day to day. You don't know where your next meal is coming from. We brought her cases of Bibles to hand out. She's just weeping. She's been praying for some money to buy a piece of land, a safe place to bathe. She lives on nothing. Would you and I pass this test? We don't have any savings or very little. We're just living from day to day. We don't know where our next meal is coming from, and we're saving our money to baptize Muslims that want to kill me? I don't think so. Yeah, I do think so. It's something you have to work out in your heart. You know, we're talking about the racist problem that's going on, not just in the States, but Canada. We really have to come to that love of Christ that we love one another. Red, yellow, black, and white, they're all precious in His sight. We sat motionless as she went over her testimony for Tessa. I had forgotten parts. She has had visitations by Jesus in her bedroom. He came and talked to her. Never have I... Sorry. I have never met anybody who challenged me in the faith as much as she does. She's not afraid. I'm afraid for her. I'm the one that said, you know, if you want to move to Kiboko, I'll pay for you to move. She said, I'm not moving to Kiboko. I'm staying right here. Then we went on, continuing on over the next few weeks. God was at work. We couldn't find Juma at first. We searched the streets of Kiboko town, drove around. Dante drove around. Where is he? Where is he? And then one day, Madeline saw him. A pile of rags, coiled up and bunched up in a storefront entrance. I can still picture it. We went and visited him. He didn't have his smile. He wasn't happy. He wasn't rejoicing. He had been beat up. Madeline and Tess went out and bought him new clothes, blankets, a backpack. In the weeks ahead, we bought them food every time we saw them. They have these little cafeteria things where you can go and get food. We send them there. The homeless, the crippled, the handicapped, the blind, the elderly have nowhere to go. There's no government support there. They're on their own. If there are orphanages for young children, but if you're vulnerable, there's nothing for you. And that weighs heavy upon Madeline and I's heart. So we have said to us too, I'm just confessing, if I was 20 years younger, I'd be building something for the elderly. I'm not prepared to do that right now at 70. It's still heavy on our hearts today. We are honored to be partners with churches like Withrow, so that we can go out and do it not on our behalf, but on our behalf. And we don't have the words to express our gratefulness to you, except show you the fruit. And then you can see the proof in the fruit. Every year that we travel to Africa, God has a special treat for us, the two of us. You want to share it?
Start.
Start. That word you want me to know. Come on up. You share it.
Well, God has allowed us, we meet lots of medical needs, and ones that I never see because Moses hands out medicine and does wound care and so on. But every year it seems there's one extreme emergency, like the lady a couple of years ago that was pregnant and she had parasites and she was going to lose her baby. Different things, eyesight, people were losing. Well, this year was a little bit different. One of our teachers, Chandiga, was making a beeline across the schoolyard one day, and I said to Tessa, here comes Chandiga, he's looking for something. He's our sports director as well as teacher, and he's always coming hoping that I'll buy more net balls for him, or soccer balls, or footballs, or whatever, or uniforms. Anyway, he came in and did his formal protocol and said, Mama, I have a daughter and she's sick. Well, I only know one daughter. And I said, well, Happy is sick. And he said, no, it's not Happy. I have an older daughter you haven't met. About 16 or 17, I guess, and she lived with her grandma in the bush near Congo. And he said, she's got something wrong with her leg. It's swollen. It's very painful. And I brought her home to me here at the refugee camp. So you have to kind of go through protocol, and he's head of home, and he's male, of course. And I said, well, would you mind if Tessa and I go over to your hut and see her? Her name's Alice. And he said, no, please come. I'll take you right now. So we went, and indeed, her leg was very, very swollen. In fact, she couldn't put a flip-flop on her foot anymore. So swollen, very painful. It was completely white. They were doctoring it with wood ashes, which is the common thing, to just use wood ash. And the story went that a year ago, so last May, in 2019, she had an injury in her leg, a wound that was open, and didn't want to heal. Her grandma took her into Congo. There was a traveling medical team. And they looked at it and said, oh, it's cancer, it looks like cancer, you can go home and die. And so by now, this had healed over. It's almost a full year later, and Tessa and I are looking at it, and I said, Tessa, I'm no doctor, but that doesn't look like cancer to me. So anyway, not that I know what cancer looks like, but I just seem to know that that's not what this is. So protocol again, I said, Chandiga, would you mind if it was my village and it was my daughter at home, and I didn't like the diagnosis, I would ask for another opinion. Would you mind if Papa and I sent her into Kaboko town to the little hospital for another opinion? He said, no, that would be fine. I knew right away, saying that we would foot the bill, and I thought, well, I'm happy to do that. I have help. People, I have help. And so I thought, this is important. This is the one that God is giving us this year. So we did. And the long and the short story, it stretched out for about 10 days. We took her into Kiboko to the hospital and sent her mom along with her, and food, because there's no food. So you supply the food, the transportation, everything. So after a lot of testing, blood work and stools and urine and everything, x-rays, at that hospital, it's sent her to another hospital to repeat it. And 1 week on antibiotic, she was well. She had a blood infection from that wound. That's all it was. Chandiki came to us and we didn't know what it was like the day before we had to evacuate. He said, Mama, she would have died, and not from cancer. She would have died from an infection. I said, yes, she would have. She would have died. And so God gives us those every now and then, and it's so special that we can help someone in a real special way. And it cost us in Canadian dollars about $300 to save a life.
Wow.
Remember, when we say us, we mean us.
Have a benevolent fund.
So what happened there?
That was a
God used you to move Alice's mountain.
Yeah, that was a miracle.
So let me ask you a question this morning. Is God asking you to get involved in someone else's life and help them move their mountain? Is God using you to be His hands extended? That's all we are, is God's hands extended. That's it. Well, then the inevitable happened. We were just working. On one particular morning, all too soon, the time came when we had to answer the inevitable question. Should we change our tickets and return home and go home early, or stay and ride this COVID thing out until May? We had been wondering about this. Our families have been asking us to come home. Our home church at Liberty was asking us to at least consider coming back. We got an email from the government. We register with them and we can be in communication with them. We got an email saying, you will have to evacuate or be at risk of staying in Uganda as the borders are about to close. Borders, okay, we can handle borders closing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to the Congo. I'm not going to Sudan. I'm staying in Uganda. I can handle that. So a few days later, we have a very, very busy day planned. So I had arranged a 5:30 breakfast time with our staff, or some of our staff, at our hotel. And our driver was there. And so we're just sitting down for breakfast, and he stands up and he says, Papa, we have a big problem. Oh, what happened? The Land Cruiser broke? We got a flat tire? Like, I can handle that. No, it's not like that at all. I only wish it was. The president of Uganda announced last night, the airport is closing today at midnight. You have to get up. No. We're not ready to go. Far from it. We've got all this planned still. We don't have a choice. You have to leave. Our brains are numb. We're trying to understand what is really happening. The decision had been made for us. We have no choice. We either go and try and get an air flight out today, which in our natural mind seemed impossible. Impossible, that's a really good word, isn't it? Because we can change it to possible. So immediately we went into prayer over the breakfast table, that God would make a way, that He would direct our steps, and He would get us out by midnight. Impossible situation. Every missionary in Uganda is trying to do the same thing. There's hundreds. Every UN worker is trying to get out of the country on the same planes. We are 10 hours from the airport. We have no tickets for today. We have tickets, but our tickets are in May. So pushing back what? Our own understanding, pushing that back, and pushing back all negative thoughts. You can't do that. You won't make it. There's no seats for you like that. And putting our trust in who can move this mountain? God. We started taking steps. What's the first step? Go on path. Fast. Quickly.
Go.
So we did. Now we're on the Land Cruiser. We're heading to Uganda, but we have no tickets.
To Entebbe.
Sorry, well, to Entebbe, yeah, the airport in Uganda. Thank you. So we said, Madeline said, well, let's call
No, Bandelmans, that was our...
the Bandelmans. So the Bandelmans are missionary friends we know. So we called them, explained to them the situation. They're staying, they're not going. And we said, here's our credit card number. I want you to call any and every airline you can and find a ticket for us anywhere in the world.
Out of Uganda.
Out of Uganda. I don't care where it is. Oh, really? Are you sure you want that? We have to get out. So anywhere in the world you can get us, we'll go. And my thinking at that point is we'll just work our way back home from anywhere, wherever that might be. Not realizing that almost every airport in the world was starting to close its doors and stop international flights because of the COVID virus. We don't know that is happening. So we start driving and we're praying.
Fast.
We're still driving on dirt-filled roads filled with baboons on all sides that become roadkill.
It's quite entertaining.
Pardon?
Quite entertaining.
Yeah, watch out! We received a phone call from Bandelmans. We can get you on seats at 1 o'clock out of the airport. Oh, wait a minute now. So I turned to my driver. Can you get us to the airport by 1 o'clock? Impossible. Impossible. Keep searching. Have them keep searching. Okay, sorry guys, we can't make that one. Keep looking. So a time later now, the same friends call us back. There's a plane leaving at 3:30 that still has a few seats, and it can handle the three of you. Can you make that one? Can we make that one? Yeah? If I drive like James Bond, I can make it. I booked the flight in faith. They have my credit card. You need to understand, I paid $6,600 American dollars to get on that plane.
That we might not make.
And we might not make it.
Wow.
And it will be forfeited if we don't get there. Okay, James Bond, let's go. 120 and 130 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
On gravel roads.
Wow.
Mud.
Mud, yeah, because it had rained the night before. And then, when we get near Kampala, the traffic in Kampala is, you don't want to get stuck in a traffic jam. You can be there for hours, literally. It's horrible. So he takes all the back roads. Later, Tessa told us she had her doubts that we would arrive in one piece, let alone on time. And then I said, well, are you okay with it? She said, I would not have driven my quad on those roads. Oh, were you nervous? No, I wasn't nervous because I knew you knew what you were doing. Oh, yeah? That was a surprise to me. Okay, we got the phone call. We have seats. The plane's leaving at 3:30. They're paid for. Now we got to go. Where are we going now? Oh, we're flying from Entebbe to Doha, Qatar.
Wow.
We don't even know where that country is. It's in the Middle East, in case you don't know too. From Qatar, from Doha, we're going to JFK. Wait a minute. John Wayne, New York.
No, JFK.
It's John Wayne. Oh, sorry, guys.
That's California.
Yeah, John Wayne's the other end of the country. Okay, JFK Airport. I've been reading that JFK, is that not the center of the virus in the United States?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're flying from no virus at this moment into the epicenter of New York. You think God has a humor? Were we nervous? Yeah, we were a bit nervous. And from JFK, we're going to another airport in New Jersey. And we're flying out of Liberty Airport in New Jersey to Calgary. Oh, imagine that. Where's Liberty?
Yeah.
Where is the airport in New Jersey? Nobody knew. Well, I don't even know how to get there. One step at a time. God, I don't know how to get to Liberty. I don't even really want to go to New York. Sounds simple, eh? If you say it fast, it is. We were oblivious to the fact JFK was the virus center. Oblivious. We were told later, while we're on the plane, that New York is shut down. And very soon they're going to stop all international flights incoming. Wait a minute now. We're on one of the last planes out of Uganda, and we're going to be on one of the last planes that lands in New York? Man, we've got no worries. When we got to Entebbe, let's back up a little bit. 0 minutes to spare. 0.
Wow.
Not room for a flat tire, not room for a pee break, not room for nothing. Let me explain this. We're checked in, we go to our counter, we check in. Now you have to go and check out your visas, your passports, all of that. So we're at the passport counter, immigration, and we hear this. Flight so-and-so, Qatar, is now boarding. That's how close we were.
Wow.
To losing $9,000, to forfeiting $9,000. God makes a way.
Yeah.
So, we're on the plane, we're heading there. We land in JFK. Now, first of all, I want to tell you about the plane ride. There's 6 of us on the plane. We were 3.
The last 3. The last flight.
The last flight to JFK. There's 6 passengers. There's more staff than there are passengers. Like, I didn't even think the plane was going to go. But they did. I'm very grateful for that. So we landed in JFK. Now, where's Liberty? So we started asking around. There's an information counter over there. We go to the information counter like this. The lady's behind me. When we approach it, she walks up and goes like this.
Yeah.
She thinks we're from Mars. Or maybe we have the virus. I don't know. And so over the counter, I'm hollering at her, where's the train to Liberty? We got to get a plane in Liberty. Because of the virus, the trains are canceled. Oh, this is not calculating up here. Like, God, how are we going to get to Liberty? And then one of us says, one of the 3 of us, well, what about a taxi? Sounds expensive. It is. It was. So we walk outside the door, and there's a taxi. He's just getting his fare out. So it's a trick I learned working with open doors. You want a cheap taxi, you get someone who's just dropped off somebody. He's got some money, then someone chooses. So I'm finding one like that. I went up to him and said, would you mind taking us to Liberty Airport? Sure, jump in. I didn't ask how much. I don't care at this point. Money's not an option. I know Withrow will come through.
I need to go home.
And we landed at Liberty.
No.
And then, not landed, we drove to Liberty. And the taxi driver turns to me and he says, man, that's the fastest I ever got here to Liberty. Yeah, but the roads were empty. There's nobody on. New York by this time was shut down.
Yeah.
So we walked in. And I didn't realize how emotional this was affecting me. I walked in and I just took a few steps. And then I saw it and I broke down and wept. Air Canada? Air Canada. No, you don't get it. Air Canada. Like we might get home here. I walked up to the counter. We checked in. They welcomed us. We went and sat down.
They
and had it.
didn't even charge for extra luggage. He said, no, just go. It was good.
And we flew to Calgary. Again. Is this plane even going to Calgary? I pinch myself. Is this really happening? Like we're out of all this junk behind us, and God is moving us forward, and He's moving this mountain, and He's making a way. We landed in Calgary. One of the few Canadian airports still taking international flights. I don't know, there was 3 or 4 airports Canada allowed to still take international flights. Calgary was one. That's the one we're heading to. Okay, this might work. When we got there, our daughter Joanne and son-in-law David had taken our pickup truck and took it down there and parked it. We drove home exhausted. The flight from Qatar to JFK is 14 hours.
Wow.
We had lots of time to pray.
We were still dressed like we were for work in the morning
Yeah.
when we got home. It's crazy.
So as I share this with you, we spent the three of us spent the next 14 days in quarantine. With this reassuring message burning in our spirits, we talked about over and over and over again in those 14 days. Our God still moves mountains today. And He will use your mountain if you will seek Him and do whatever He asks you to do. It may not make sense to you, and it doesn't have to, because He says, don't rely on your understanding. And He alone will make the way. Since our return, we have remained in contact with our staff. Madeline actually bought one of them a modern phone so she can text them. It's really neat until they start coming at 3 in the morning. That happened just even last night. It happened. But the situation in the camps has worsened. We have been informed by our staff that some of the elderly and the handicapped living in the camps have not eaten now in days. The emergency money that we had left when we were leaving designated for food is finished. And the hunger still remains the number one problem. So they asked us, please, would you help us? Both of us replied. Immediately, we went to the Western Union. And we dipped into our savings account and we sent more emergency money. Today, Madeline and I are raising funds, not for ourselves, for them, who are hungry, who are missing meals. Would you stand with us in faith that God will use your gift to feed those who are hungry, and long enough so we can get the salvation to them? Will you help? Brian, you're up. Thank you very much, and thank you for sending us. Without you guys, we wouldn't be going. I gotta wash it.
Let's give a big hand. We love our dear friends, George and Madeline, for all these years of serving in the areas of ministry that you're serving. Thank you for sharing your hearts with us today. I don't know, as I've been hearing you, and I once again think of the scripture we started with this morning, this resonates even more in your travels and your journey, being brought home from where you had to, were and so on, but how it comes to its close. I will read this one more time. And the Lord brought back the captive ones of Zion. We were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with joyful shouting, and they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. It's something when you enter into I believe whatever form of ministry, both benefit from it. Those who go and those who receive. There's just this benefit. And I believe that really is for us today as well, to hear the stories, to hear your hearts, to see what God has done and is doing. You know, we are greatly blessed in that, and to know that we've had some part to play. But we don't want to stop at this point by any means. In fact, we want to increase and grow along with what God's doing. And then it goes on, restore our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. Those who sow in tears shall reap with joyful shouting. He who goes to and fro carrying his bag of seed shall indeed come again with a shout of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. And so to see the fruit of the efforts and the ministry that has gone on, and to rejoice with you in that, but also to keep sowing into it and being a part of that work. So we want to pray, and I'm going to ask us all to just bow in prayer, and we would ask the Lord to show in our hearts what we can do in terms of supporting. And I just want to challenge anybody that's listening to this message today in your homes, wherever you may be, that you would also be a part of this. And so just pray and ask the Lord what you can do to support and help in a great, great area of ministry. And so whatever the Lord puts on your heart, and again, for those here, we can go out and we can put something in that basket, or else you can do it online, wherever you may be. So let's pray. Father, we just want to thank you so much for your workers. We thank you, Father, for those who have been sent. And Lord, we're all sent. But Lord, George and Madeline have taken on a great area of ministry, Lord, over all these years, to go to foreign fields and to work the harvest. Lord, I pray in the name of Jesus to know that we can be a part of that with them. Lord, that it's we together, Lord, serving your cause and your purpose in this ministry. Lord, would you guide us, I pray, even now, just drop into our hearts, Lord, what it is you have us to do. And Father, may we just go beyond our own boundaries, Lord, knowing that you go above and beyond to reach our lives, Father, through the sacrifice of your Son on the cross. Help us, Lord, to go above and beyond in even our stretching our faith. So, Lord, we ask this in Jesus' name. We thank you for this morning. I just pray, Holy Spirit, touch each life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 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 So, as we go from here, if you want to go to the table, if you want to say hello to George and Madeline for a few minutes before you leave, God bless you. We're going to be back here next Sunday. Amen. And Father's Day. So we're going to celebrate a good father who's a good giver of gifts, and we're going to talk about that next Sunday. So let's stand together, and we're going to just declare God's blessing over your lives for this week. Amen. So may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's countenance shine upon you and give you his peace. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. God bless you all. Thank you for being a part of our day today. Amen.